How would you go about dumping the shame that I've been carrying around sexuality and really leave my mistakes in the past?
That's a really good question. Here's the thing. You can't dump your shame. And the more you try to dump your shame, the more frustrated you're going to get. And no one else can talk you out of your shame. No amount of words that I say to you is going to make your shame go away. The only thing that will change who you are and what you believe about yourself is an encounter with Jesus. And I don't say that lightly. You know, I spent a lot of years getting a doctorate degree in clinical psychology to learn how to talk you out of negative thinking and shame. But here's what I've seen, that only Jesus can remove that shame from you. And a lot of times what happens is because we feel shame, we talked about this earlier, we acknowledge God instead of intimately knowing him. So we keep Jesus on arm's length because we feel so unworthy to be near him. When in reality, the only way that we can be cleansed is to be near him. And there's a beautiful story in Luke chapter 7 of a woman who was full of shame. As a matter of fact, she was known by everyone in her town as a sexual sinner. She was probably a temple prostitute. And Jesus was having dinner at the house with a group of Pharisees, and this woman was not invited to the party. She just shows up, and she's weeping, and she's at his feet and just sobbing and worshiping. And all the Pharisees are like, wow, who's this? Who let her in? And one of the Pharisees, the guy whose house it was, even says in his mind, this can't be a holy man, because if it were, he would never let her touch him. He would never let her get near. And then Jesus turns and he knows the man's thoughts, and he said, look at this woman. She's been worshiping me, and you're like distant from me. You know, she's been crying out to me. And then he says the most beautiful thing. He says, he who has been forgiven much loves much. And when I read that scripture, I see here's a woman who came in with the identity as a sexual sinner, as a dirty, shameful person. And she leaves with the identity as a woman who loves much and who has been forgiven much. And I really believe that that invitation is extended to us. But if you're still carrying that shame, my guess is that you're still staying outside of that house thinking, if I went in, Jesus would never accept me. And so I would encourage you, when you leave this conference, even at this conference, find someone to pray with and just say, I need that kind of encounter with Jesus where he changes my identity. And remember the date, write the date down. Write down what God is teaching you. Some women will even do something symbolic, you know, like they'll take a rock and write their sins on it, and they'll bury it in the ground, or they'll throw it in a lake, just to say, on September 24th, 2016, Jesus buried my shame. And every time the enemy tells me to pick it up again, I'm not picking it up, because I've encountered him. And truly, that's the only thing that rescues us from our shame. You know, there's really no answer other than that one.